So it was kind of a really slow tipping point to finally get to the point where now I'm like, this is what I do for my career right now.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
the best job ever, but but also like, you know, it took me a while to get to this point.
Okay, hello running family, or hello family, or hello Live Run Balance family. Welcome to another episode of Live Run Balance Show. I'm your host, Kenneth Pinckney, and today my guest co-host is a good friend, Ultra Trail runner, and I've actually found out last year through IG, due to Izzy, Ultra Izzy, making fun of me on we was out on the trail doing a modeling shoot, that my guest co-host is from South Carolina as well. Not only that, we graduated high school the same year, and so how crazy is that? So welcome, my guest co-host, my South Carolina sister, Peaches Agojo, as my co-host for today's show.
Hi guys, thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely. I could be my guest, my guest co-host. But now we want to welcome our guests. Today we had the privilege to interview one of the top ultra trail runners in the world. In her first 100-mile race, she came out on top. Also, she's the winner of the Squamish 50 mile, and I believe the next day she ran 50K. Also, she's the member of Team USA 2018 Trail World Championship in Spain. First place in course record. I believe she said if I said that right, the Bear 2018 first place course record. 3-time top 10 Western State. First all-female team to complete the Rainier Infinity Loop with I hope I'm gonna say her name right. You can help me out. Alex Borsuk, 2019. And also her running career, she have a PhD in Bioengineering from the University of Washington. She also likes skiing, snowboarding, and problem solving. So family, welcome with Kaytlyn, Gerbin to Live Run Balance Show. So first, how are you doing?
Oh my God, I'm so good, but I think I'm a little that's quite an introduction. List everything off. I'm so happy to join you guys. I'm excited to talk. Less comfortable hearing my accolades listed out in front of me, but I'm excited to have a conversation with you guys.
Yeah, so we excited to be here with you. I know we watch you. Kind of keep track of you a little bit. Your race. I know Peaches is just a big fan of yours. Also, she
Yes.
So yes, definitely.
Lived in Washington, so.
Yeah. Oh, awesome! Where in Washington did you live?
Port Orchard, across Seattle. Yeah. So.
Cool. So there you go. You got the connections also. So first, Kaytlyn, I like to talk about a process. So I like to talk about your process. Are you becoming an ultra trail runner, or what's your life before you become the ultra trail runner that you are right now?
Yeah, actually I was just out skiing with some newer friends yesterday, and they asked me that similar question, but they're like, wait, did you run in college? And I'm like, nope. They're like, wait, did you run in high school? Nope. They're like, what? How did that happen? So yeah, I'll give you a little backstory, but yeah, the summary at the beginning here is that I did not grow up a runner, and I didn't really find running and the joy of running until I was in college, just for fun. And then I didn't really get a glimpse of the fact that I might actually be really good at this long distance running thing until I was in my mid-20s and well into the middle of pursuing my PhD, which maybe is what helped make me go crazy and run long distances. But yeah, I grew up in Wisconsin and was always really active outdoors, went camping, running around in the woods with my siblings, getting ourselves into trouble, climbing trees, riding horses, things like that. So yeah, I had a really fun childhood, but really removed from the mountains. And so I first moved to Seattle for graduate school. And I had been really into snowboarding as a high schooler, and in college got involved with some outdoor clubs. I started running while I was in college, just to kind of stay in shape and meet friends. And then I moved to Washington and suddenly had access to all of this amazing terrain that now I love to play in, and it has become like a really big part of my life. But I don't know, I found it kind of through a different means. I think I found running and just moving in the mountains and playing in the mountains as an adult. And I think that is an amazing thing, but also felt pretty different and definitely gave me some kind of feelings of being an imposter and not quite having the same way into it as many of the other elite runners that I was lining up against, especially at the beginning.
Wow.
So you say you felt like an imposter, girl, like because you didn't wasn't like running for that long, or what?
Well, I think like I just didn't really know what I was doing when it came to racing. Like, you know, you know, it's one thing to show up, you know, and race at a local race where it's part of my community and I have a lot of friends and things, right? But then a little bit different to go to something like Western States where you know, girls who I'm racing against have marathon PR times that are an hour faster than me, or like have run D1 cross country or track. And I'm like, I don't really know. Like I can't, you know, or it's like the class that was like, you know, you can't compete with that on paper, but then actually, you know, you can compete with that. And so I think it's just, it took me a while to accept that there are different ways to arrive at you know, at a place in life.
So you had to remove that self-doubt, you know, or what you I guess you could do or cannot do, something like that. So
exactly.
Yeah, but it didn't take long for you to adapt and adjust, you know. Yes, it seemed like.
What year was that when you started?
So I ran my first 50K in 2014.
Okay.
Oh, that seems, you know.
Yeah, I mean 10, so about I guess not less than 10 years.
10? Yeah, wow.
And the first, for what it's worth, the first 50K I did, I had an amazing time like running with people on the trails. And like that, I had done a few road marathons before that, and I felt like running on the roads for me it felt super individualized, and like everyone's kind of running with their headphones and no one's really talking. And suddenly I did this trail race, and I felt like I like came out of the race with like 10 new friends that I've never met before, because we're just running along the trail. So that part of it was fun. However, I also like did not know how to fuel, did not know how to pace, and just like the first half was super fun, and the second half I was just like, what is happening? What am I doing? So I finished the first 50K legitimately thinking like, this trail running, this ultra running thing, not for me. Like, I don't think I'm good at this. I'm probably just gonna like, at least I did one. Now it's time for something else. Go back to marathons.
Oh no. But you went back, obviously.
I did, and actually I think a big reason why is because after that first race, so that was called the Baker Lake 50K in Washington, and it's a super low-key race. After the race, there's a bonfire, and there's like a pot of chili that someone brings, and everyone's just kind of drinking beer around the fire. And two of the new friends that I had met while running, we were all just kind of talking around the fire, and they're like, oh, well, so if you thought this race was hard, you should look up this, or you should look up this. And one of them was talking about running 100-mile race. And I, you know, and he also like, I don't know, like I didn't really know a whole lot about long distance races, but he also didn't strike me initially as like, oh yeah, that guy definitely runs 100-milers. Like he just is a normal guy, like super chill, has a, you know, day job, and you know, like, and so I think they really like were the start of a friendship of like planting some seeds of different ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also told my husband and I, who also ran the race that day, they invited us to join a local running shop for their group runs. So that was this awesome shop, Seven Hills Running Shop in Seattle, and they're right next to an urban park that has some trails. And so we started going to those group runs, and I think that was really like what kind of got us connected to the trail running community.
Yeah.
And then through there, you know, you make friends and you start hearing about people talking about the races they're running or the adventures they're having. And so I think without the, you know, if I had just shown up to that first race, done it, and then gone home, I don't think I would have ever really I wouldn't have seen that side of trail running, which is what ultimately really got me hooked on it, I think.
Yes, always. Go ahead.
Always stay for the post run. Post
Always, yeah, exactly. Usually free snacks.
Yes.
I know.
Good conversation and bad ideas.
Oh,
Yes. Next, you know, you're signing up for more.
I know.
And you wake up, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think we all got sucked in a few times, you know, to a race like, oh, why did I sign up for that? You know, so yeah, but
Doing it.
yeah.
Sometimes you need people to kind of push you to do something that you're not sure you want to do.
I know.
And then you try it and you're like, actually, that was amazing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a couple of times it's been amazing. A couple of times it have not been amazing.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, but it's cool, you know. So, well, I think you already touched on that a little bit. But after winning your first 50 mile, how do you know that you probably could make a career out of the ultra trail running, this ultra trail running thing?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if I really saw that as an option for myself until pretty recently, like in the last few years.
Okay.
I think in the first few years, like when I ran, you mentioned the Pine to Palm, so my first 100-mile race and Squamish 50-50, those were the same summer, or so like really pretty, actually like within a month of each other, which is maybe ill-advised, but I didn't know that at the time. So like, you know, I did those, and I think that was definitely a shift in my mind of really thinking like, oh, I really love this, and also I'm really good at it. And I think, I don't know, I feel like whether it's in sport or in our careers or hobbies, like we're always looking for the overlap of those things, right?
Yeah,
Things that come naturally that we also really enjoy doing. And so I got a glimmer of that, and that's kind of what made me decide to try to get into Western states. And so the way that I thought was the fastest for me to do that was to try to get a golden ticket.
Yes.
And so that next spring, I got a golden ticket at Gorge Waterfalls, and then raced at Western States that next year. And actually a previous guest of yours that we had just mentioned before the show started, Ladia Albertson-Jenkins, I had gotten connected with her around that time, and she was actually a really instrumental training partner in you know, helping push me to do things that I didn't really think was possible or feasible for myself in training. So yeah, we had some great runs, and she also helped pace me along with my husband, Ellie, who's also a huge supporter and really like the reason. We'll talk about that, but yeah, it's like having a supportive partner and someone who's your biggest cheerleader and stoked on you is really important. So anyway, I think going back to the career thing, like I, you know, showed up then at Western States and did well there, but I didn't have any sponsors. And even after Western States, it took a while. I think it was like the following year before I got any sponsors, and it was a pretty small sponsorship. And I was still really seeing it as something that I did on the side. I was so busy with it being in the middle of graduate school that I was still like, most of my runs were just by headlamp, and then I'd go out for long days on the weekends for fun. And I didn't really see where I really was like focused on my science career and thinking like, oh, this is just kind of a thing that I'm doing on the side. but I was always really wishing that I had more time for that. And then I think as I started doing better at races, I started getting invited to go travel internationally for races. I started competing against, you know, higher and higher caliber of athletes. And I guess I started to see that it was like there was friction, like there's not quite like I couldn't keep competing at that level with without having and forming a little bit more time to really pursue it as a professional career. So it was kind of a really slow tipping point to finally get to the point where now I'm like, this is what I do for my career right now. And it's the best job ever, but but also like, you know, it took me a while to get to this point.
So it been a process. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was a process. Sticking with it and say it's something that you desire, you want it, and you decide that you got to go all in.
That's what I ultimately ended up doing. I worked finished graduate school and then worked as a scientist for I think 5 or 6 years after that, and then just last year I decided to take a break from my science job so that I can go all in on being an athlete. So I'm not sure how long I'm going to keep doing that, but for right now it's amazing. And and it's been fun to just explore like the professional side of this too.
I can't imagine all the free perks and all that.
What was that?
All the free perks, you know, free shoes for life and all that, you know.
Yeah. And also like I mean, there's a lot. I think before I became a pro athlete, I thought a lot of it was just like, oh, I get to go run, go travel and run races and then just train and hang out and eat. And actually like there's a lot of work in like, you know, work for the brands and marketing and product testing and but I really love that. And that's a thing that I never had time to really explore when I was working full time.
Awesome. That's great. That's great.
Now so when you started, like you did 50K and then 50 miler, how do you process about thinking how did you get to the point where I want to do 100 miler? Like, I mean, you know, it's like it's double.
Yeah.
You know? So like
it is. So my gateway to it was that I signed up for the Squamish 50/50, which you guys referenced at the beginning. So that's super fun race, really hard, beautiful spot. If you guys get the chance to go there sometime, I'd recommend it.
On my list.
So it's 50 miles one day and then 50K the next day.
Oh wow.
I signed up for that. I'd heard it was actually another podcast and YouTuber and now friend of mine, Ethan Newberry, so the Ginger Runner.
I follow him.
He had done like a short video on the Squamish 50/50, and I saw that and I was like, oh, that looks like impossible and crazy, but I really want to try it. And at the time when I signed up for it, I was like, I maybe will do 100 miler sometime in my life, but I don't think I can do that. I don't think I have enough time to train for it.
Right.
So I signed up for that. And then the problem is that in training for that, I realized like no one would do more training than this for 100 miler. Like what I'm doing is like more than what some people do for 100 miler. So I think maybe to be more broad with the answer, just there's so many different ways to prepare for running a 100-mile race. And just because it's double the distance doesn't mean that you're doing double the training.
Okay.
I think it can be. Some people do a lot, but you know, I also know a lot of people who train for 100 milers by running only 40 to 50 miles a week.
Okay.
There's there's a range, but I think like to do 100 milers, it doesn't mean you have to run 100-mile weeks. Like I actually rarely hit that much mileage for myself. And I think I don't know, I like to think that there's so much that goes into it. Like there's a lot of problem solving. You have to really be able to eat. So just like a lot of snacking while moving, like that's so much more important. But I don't know, like I think it can also just be like your mindset. Like if you're going into wanting to do 100-miler and you're just preparing, like I'm going to just spend the whole day and the whole night out moving in the woods. Like that's what is going to happen. It's
I'm on your feet, right?
yeah, yeah. And you're walking a lot too.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about trail running is you can hike it.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. It's like, even like, I'll tell people like, oh, people like don't want to like hike up a hill. I'm like, look, even like the best trail runners in the world are hiking up hills in their races.
Yeah.
And everyone's
Yeah.
like, what? Really?
I've seen video, where they're just with the poles and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes you got no choice. Why the heck got so many hills,
It's awesome. Okay. Yeah. Cause I'm on the fence of signing up, but I don't know. It's the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it helps to do like, if you've done a 50-miler, like
Mhm.
sometimes people want to do like 100K, but there's not a huge difference between 50 miles and 100K.
No.
So I think especially like one thing I think it would be really good for people who are new to hundreds is like go crew for someone who's doing 100 miles or like go volunteer at the aid station, just because like you get to see and learn so much just by like being there.
Yeah.
And it's really entertaining.
And it's more fun on the other side, right? To volunteer than
Oh yeah. No, that's the secret. It is so much more fun to like crew or volunteer for hundreds than to actually run one yourself.
Yeah. I got that coming up soon, So last year, I my first time volunteer at 100-miler, San Diego 100, my first time volunteer. And this year, I was planning to volunteer again, but a friend of mine tell me wanted to crew him on 100-miler. So my first time crewing somebody on 100-miler at the same race.
At San Diego 100.
San Diego 100, yeah.
That's the one I'm on the fence on. So
go ahead and do it.
Oh,
yeah.
Or maybe next year I probably would do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you live in Washington, so there's a lot of mountains that you can go to, but if you had a mountain race, but you don't live in the mountain area, like how would you approach training for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of people that do that. Actually, one person that I always like really respect for this is Casey Lichtai. You guys might know, who's like done Western States a ton, really, really amazing runner. She lives in the Midwest, like runs flat, but then will still train and prepare and show up and race at 100. So actually that'd be a good question to ask her, because I don't actually know exactly what she does with her training. But I think like thinking about like strength and fitness as like both things that need to be part of training. So if you can't really run as much on hills, then can you find some stairs to do some repeats on? Can you find small hills just to get some variation and things?
Or like the altitude, I think, is the hard part.
Well, see, that's hard for me too, because I live at sea level.
Yeah, because you went to UTMB, so I mean that
it is. I think it was more a problem for me at Bear 100, where I came from sea level and then went right up to Utah, and that race gets up above 9,000 feet a few times. And I found that like for me, like though every time I was getting above like 8,000 to 9,000 feet, I just would get really nauseous. I had to slow down, like had a hard time with that. But the good thing is I was finding it was always going away. So it kind of becomes a thing to manage. Like when you're going up high, maybe you have to slow down a little bit, like don't exert quite as much. And then you get to the lower elevations and you can push a little bit more.
Smart.
So yeah.
it's a dance.
It's a dance, yeah. It's always, I think, like no matter what it is, it's like for anything like 100 or the longer the race, the more problem solving there is. And I think like I've never had a race where like I wasn't problem solving something. Like something always goes wrong. Like that's just a given when you're out for that long. So I think like just being ready to adapt to it. Because not everyone has a chance to get out to altitude before a race and adapt. Like that's just not feasible for most people. And I think that can be okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Definitely.
we'll find out soon enough, right?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so you like problem solving, you know, you saw we was a scientist, you do a lot of problem solving, and now that can help you in your run to problem
Yeah.
solve also.
Yeah, I think so. I always thought that was like maybe one of the biggest overlaps with the two is that you just always gotta, yeah, exactly. You said it's always problem solving.
Okay, that's cool. See, I want to go back to the team aspect. You know, doing research, I mentioned before, while we're doing your introduction, you were part of Team USA, competing the Trail World Championship. No, I think everybody dream of, or most everybody dream, athlete dream to be part of Team USA, you know. So what does it mean for you to have been part of Team USA?
It's been like one of the highlights of my running career to be part of a team like that. I think it's especially stands out to me because, like I mentioned, I didn't run as part of a running team in high school or college, and so I never really experienced that like team aspect of running. And so yeah, I mean, it was such a dream to like put on a US jersey and like feel way cooler than I felt like I was, like you know, like it was amazing. And so I did the Trail World Championships in 2018 in Spain, and then I also was on the team again in Thailand this last fall.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so I've gotten a chance to do it twice, and I think both times were unique for their own reasons, but really amazing. And it's cool to see, like, with there being so many top runners on the team, like we all have competed against each other before, and then as soon as the team is established, like everyone came together. Like before Thailand, I had an email chain where we were like sharing any information we could get about the course. Someone like found something and was like, oh hey, like you know, here's some info, and we were getting out training together beforehand. So it's really cool to see people come together to race and support each other as a team, even though, you know, in a couple months maybe I'm going to be racing against them.
I know.
So yeah, it's a really fun experience.
Yeah, it does that, like basketball, the dream team basketball, or whatever, or the Team USA basketball team, they compete against one all the time, and like, but they come together, you know, for that one shining moment. And you know, it's like it's a beautiful thing, you know. But I'm gonna ask you a question, but not question that I didn't prepare, but kind of like I just like thought of. Do you have a dream team of ultra trail running?
Do I have a dream team?
Yeah, like
no, I don't, but it sounds like I should make one. Like dream fantasy, like a fantasy football.
Yeah.
Trail team.
Yeah, who would be on your dream team if you were creating one?
I don't know. You're gonna put me on the spot.
So we are.
I mean, I'll give one way to look at the answer is actually like I run with the North Face, and our team, like in addition to the Team USA aspect of like the team thing, we really have that with the North Face athlete team, and it just feels like a family. And we're also always like you know, even though we race against each other, we're always like trying to coordinate training camps or meeting up for different things or giving people advice on our own training. So I don't know, that feels like a pretty dream team to be a part of.
Okay. That's a good safe answer. That's cool. But so sticking with the team theme for a minute. So also you're part of the first all-female team to compete. Is it the Rainier? I'm saying it right? The Rainier Infinity Loop?
Rainier. Yeah, Rainier Infinity Loop.
Yeah. So how was that moment for you? Like, you know?
Oh my gosh. That was probably well, at the time, that was the craziest thing I could have ever imagined doing. And somehow I feel like I've latched onto that, and I continue to try to do things that are the craziest things I can imagine doing. But that was maybe the start. That was the start of it. So yeah, I did this with a friend in 2019, and her name is Alex Borsuk. And do you mind if I just explain kind of what it is?
Yeah,
first?
yeah.
So the Rainier Infinity Loop is this route that we're trying to get an FKT, or fastest known time, on. And it is a mountaineering route, but also involves a lot of trail running. So Mount Rainier, which is this big volcano in Washington, has glaciers. It's pretty serious travel. So you're out traveling on a rope with tools and everything. And so you climb Mount Rainier, and then all the way to the top, goes up to 14,000 feet, which, coming from sea level, that's high for us in the Northwest. And then you go down the other side, and there's a trail called the Wonderland Trail, which I know very well now also. And the Wonderland Trail goes all the way around Mount Rainier. So basically you go up Rainier, down, and then you run half of the Wonderland Trail, get back to where you started.
Wow.
Then you go up Mount Rainier again, down again, the other side, and then run the other direction.
Oh
So
my
you
God.
make like an infinity loop symbol around Mount Rainier. And
Wow.
it's just, it's crazy. But it also was like one of the most amazing experiences. And I feel like really, I don't know, like, I think I learned a lot from that trip and that route. And I think, though it was very hard, we had bad weather, and so we ended up turning around at one point. We thought we weren't going to be able to finish it, but then we were delayed by a day and then still kept going. And so then basically we were prepared mentally for like a 2 to 2.5 day long thing, and it ended up taking us 4 days because of the weather. And so at that, by halfway through, we were just like, we just really want to get this done, probably because I really want to do this route, and I don't think we would ever come back and do it again. And we're halfway done, so like, let's just keep going.
Start over.
But I think like those are the kind of moments that really help like shape us. And I definitely feel like, especially before that, I had spent so much time in the mountains, but almost always with other guys. I have a lot of really amazing climbing and touring friends, but many of them are men. And so to go out with just Alex, with just the two of us there, plan all the logistics ourselves, just go out with really like just the two of us and share that experience was really powerful. And I came out of that then just feeling like really tired, but also really excited, and have kind of been chasing adventures like that ever since.
Adventure.
That's awesome. What month was that actually when you did that?
We did it in August of 2019. And actually that was, I think that was the first year that I signed up for UTMB. I was registered for UTMB 3 different years in a row, but that year I was signed up. But the problem was, and this was getting back to like what you were asking me before about like running career versus science career. I had already traveled internationally, I think twice earlier in that year, and I was like out of vacation date. Like I couldn't take a week off. We had some really big deadlines at my job also in August, end of August. And so when I like had waited for so long, I didn't book any of my travel for UTMB. I wasn't quite sure if I would do it. And then when Alex was like, hey, actually, do you want to do this? She had been asking me for a while, but then when she re-asked me again, like, hey, there's good weather, we could do it this weekend. Do you want to go? And I was like, actually, that sounds like, to have an adventure like that just in your backyard. Was pretty incredible. So
that's awesome.
I said no to UTMB instead.
That's cool. It was just meant to be the right time, the right moment.
I think so. Yeah.
Now, with all your, like you said earlier, initially you had, you realized that nutrition is a big thing with racing and stuff. What are your go-to, like, how do you prepare, like pre-race, during your fueling yourself during your, and then after, obviously also is necessary? You
mean like, are you curious specifically for races?
Basically.
Okay,
so is kind of like, I guess food is always there, or you go to are.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing I try to remember is that like what works for someone else might not work for me. I think I've gotten into trouble before when I'm trying to follow things
Someone
that other people are doing, and that
Yeah.
is definitely what happened at my very first 50K. Like,
Yeah.
so I now like I don't do any like specific carb loading really before a big race. I just am trying to make sure that like the week before a race, like I can use UTMB as an example.
Yeah.
So like the week before UTMB, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm like always eating enough food, like not overeating, but making sure I'm always feeling full and, never really getting to the point where I'm feeling really hungry. And then just making sure I'm getting enough water and kind of a normal mix of what I would normally be eating. This can get a little trickier when you're traveling because I think sometimes our stomachs take a little while to adjust to like new food. And so as best as possible, I just try to keep it standard with whatever I would be eating at home, and keep things simple. And then the day or two before a big race like that, I try to stick to just more simple foods. So like I really like pastas, rice and chicken, or pizza even is a good one. Things like that. And then during a race, for this will always change depending on like if it's a really hot race or if it's a really fast race. Like if it's hot or fast or both, like Western states, for example, I find like it's a lot harder for me to digest solid foods during the race.
Yes.
So then I lean more on like gels and liquid calories, and maybe halfway through or towards the end of the race, then I can like get in a little bit more food. But I feel like sometimes like when you're pushing so much, like you can only digest so much, so then it's just like trying to absorb sugars.
But
UTMB, like UTMB or a more mountainous race or a race where you're like doing more hiking, I actually find I get really, really hungry. And so if I try to just do gels and liquid calories, like I need like real food. So one of my secret tricks that's not secret anymore is I really like eating mochi. Not like ice cream mochi, but just like the regular little rice.
The mochi balls or rice
balls. Little mochi balls.
Okay.
There's a ton of different flavors. There's like, I have a Asian food market that has lots of different options. But those I feel like I like because like they can get smashed, they can be in my pockets. It doesn't really matter. And it's rice based.
And it's still good,
and not super sweet. So that kind of mixes things up. And then some bars. And then the other thing I do a lot of is watermelon, kind of no matter what. Like if I can find a watermelon, I just feel like it's always like a refreshing, like just sits well on my stomach. And I don't know, it's more of like it makes me feel good rather than like there's not a lot of calories in it, but I'll like leave the aid station with like a bunch of watermelons. It makes me feel good.
Cool. I wish I could like watermelon. I don't do watermelon for some reason. I don't know.
What? You're from South Carolina. Everybody
I know.
But I'm sure that I'm sure there's some other like fresh or refreshing fruit or something that could be your go-to.
And the sour wakes me up. So. Yeah.
Oranges like almost all aid stations have oranges. That feels like a pretty safe thing. And you can always find oranges like in any state or country.
I don't think I've seen a watermelon at the ones I've gone to. They didn't have watermelon.
It's not as common. So usually I bring my own.
There you go. Cool. All right, cool. I'll take note of those. Trial and error too, right?
Totally trial and error. And like I don't know, I think I feel like any food is good food and nothing's off limits. So if it's something that sounds good to you and it works with your stomach, like I would say always try something out on a training run. But if it works, that's good. Like I've even like on big mountain adventures and things where I'm doing a little less running but just more continuous movement. Then it's like I'll bring like a whole pack of Oreos, pizza, lots of gummy candy, and really just like anytime anything that sounds good, I think can work.
Do you do any cross training or what kind, or if you I'm sure you do, what
Yeah.
cross training do you do?
So I do regularly a lot of like physical therapy and strength work.
Okay.
It depends on kind of where I'm at in my training. Then I used to not be as good at doing PT. Like I always would have it as on my
Yeah.
assignment and then I like would never actually get it done. But I've also learned that going through a few different injuries that like, yeah, having
Yeah.
a good PT routine is actually really important.
Yeah.
To do a lot of that. And then right now I'm actually doing a lot of ski, like backcountry ski touring
nice.
and snowboarding.
I actually
So
follow you on
that's really cool.
Strava, so I see your
Oh, really? Yeah.
was
So
that this
then you see,
morning?
I do
Was
what?
it this morning? I thought I saw it. I was like, wow, she went. I think yeah.
I
It was
did
this
go this
morning.
morning. It
Yeah,
was
okay.
pretty early.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, so much snow out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I like I mentioned before, like when I was a teenager in
Yeah.
college, I loved snowboarding and that's how
Yeah.
I made
Yeah.
most of my like outdoor community. And so I found like that's always something I enjoy. And so it's really fun that I can kind of
Yeah.
fit that
I
in.
wish,
But
yeah. I tried to learn when we lived there, but it didn't
it's
happen.
not easy. I think it's not easy to learn skiing and snowboarding as an adult.
Yeah,
Like
I
when
tried
you
the skis because I needed my feet to be apart. The snowboard,
uh-huh.
you're stuck in one board.
Yeah.
But it looks cooler than the skis for some, but I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think like when you see kids learning
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
to
It was
ski or
embarrassing.
even like teenagers, like teenagers can just be reckless, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if
Yeah.
they like bounce
Yeah.
off the snow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kids like bounce off the snow and can get right back up. And I feel like
Yeah.
an adult doing that, it's like you go
No,
down once and your back is out, you're like done
I'm
for the
done.
night.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you know.
Basically. That's what happened to me.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
oh.
I
We're
flipped through on skis and then I was I was taking a class actually and they said,
uh-huh.
do this pizza thing. And then it didn't, the ski formation, you have to do a pizza and then somehow,
French
yeah.
fry.
But,
It's
oh, is it
pizza.
French?
Yeah, like pizza or French fry. So
Oh,
French fry, you're
yeah.
going straight and going fast. If you
Yeah.
pizza, you stop. But the problem is like
Great.
it's really easy to cross your pizza ski.
Okay. Yeah, no, I actually flipped and then that was the end of that.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
I
that's
can't do
funny.
it. Yeah, I'll stick to running.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fun watching people do.
Yeah.
I wish I could do it.
That's cool. So lesson learned. What have running have taught you in life, or vice versa?
Um, simple questions. um, I mean, I think I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I think one of the things I've always tried to do through running is really challenge myself. And
Yeah.
I kind of mentioned like doing something that I thought was maybe totally crazy. And when I mean totally crazy, it mostly means like I had things that I put a mental block up that think for some reason I can't do that or I can't achieve that or you know, maybe it's because I don't you know, don't feel like I have the skill set yet. So it's like a multi-year thing to build up to it. Or also this has happened a lot where it's been like, I'm trying to go after some record and I'm chasing the men's time. And it's kind of totally crazy to try to do that because I'm a woman and someone hasn't done that before. So I think like that's been, that's something that I really started to realize more through my running career. But the more I started to see that, the more I was realizing that like I was doing the same thing in science also and in grad school. And I think I know it's kind of cool once you start to like kind of pull out these things and realize like, oh, like, you know, maybe it feels really different, but like, you know, I was, you know, like I thought even like to when I was snowboarding in high school and college and always just trying to like, you know, do whatever the jumps the guys were doing because I'm like, well, why shouldn't I be able to do that? Right. Like kind of just push myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess like theme is kind of just like trying to break down any mental barriers we place for ourselves and just chase goals and things that are really exciting, even if they're like a little bit too scary to say out loud to someone else. But I think it's like sometimes like we all, I think for whether it's for running or sport or anything else, it's like we all have like those things that are in the back of our mind that we're like, oh, like, wouldn't that be really cool? But like you don't really want to tell anyone because they'd look at you and be like, seriously, are you crazy? You know, like but like those are the goals to chase. And
Awesome.
so, yeah, I think I just try to remember that as much as I can.
Okay, awesome. I like that. I like that. Yeah, definitely go against the norm or the odds, you know, like, you know, yeah. Like where we from, like me and Peaches from in South Carolina, I talk about all the time, you know. To do what we're doing is not a norm where we're from, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So definitely just grateful they would do it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Now, if ultra or ultra trail running did not exist at all, what do you think you'd be doing? I mean, what other sport or other things that you might be doing?
I mean, I think if it was another sport, I probably would either be doing a lot more snowboarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I also really love like climbing and alpinism and mountaineering. And so I've started to mix more of that in with like the Rainier Infinity Loop is kind of a blend of running in that. And so I think like that's also, even like in addition to my running, that's something that I'm also kind of working to develop myself in and challenge myself. And I think especially like years down the road, I think there's maybe a lot of potential for me to be challenging myself with fun projects and trips and adventures like that, even if I'm maybe not running 100 miles super fast.
Yeah.
Cool.
You can come visit and do Mount Whitney.
Yeah, actually, I totally
Is
should.
that
I was in Bishop for the very first time. For a North Face Athlete Summit, and where was it? It was in November, so it was actually pretty cold. There was snow, but
it's the mountaineering season, I think. By then.
Yeah, so I got to see. We didn't really do anything in the mountains. We were just out of hanging out, camping, and drinking, and playing in the trails. But I did get to see the Sierras there, and it looks amazing. So I'd love to come spend some time down there.
That would be awesome. Yeah, it's cool.
Awesome. Yes. So before I get to the final question, but what do you? I know, what brings you greater joy? What do you like to do for fun when you're not running?
I have a dog that I'm obsessed with, who is also obsessed with me.
Okay.
And I really, I don't know, I probably like my thought of a perfect evening is like a nice glass of wine, my dog on the couch in a blanket, and my husband and I hanging out. Like we like to play cribbage. Or I don't know.
What's cribbage? What's that?
It's a card game. It's a card and counting game.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to think.
Problem solving stuff, right?
I guess so. Well, we both, so we both actually, we met in college and we both studied math. So that's like that seems to track out pretty well.
Yeah, math nerds. Yes.
I guess so. It's a pretty nerdy game, actually. Yeah, but it's pretty popular in the Midwest.
Okay. That's cool. Oh, I like that. Okay. So you know what I'm going to ask. We talked about it already. You get a chance to think about it, hopefully. So what's your boundless motivation and thoughts in a few words?
I feel like I kind of used my answer, but I want to say
I think so
just
too.
Redefine what's possible for
redefine what's possible. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And redefine what's possible. So, and you redefine what possible. Do of course with your team do like the Infinity Loop, you know, that like you probably a lot of people thought probably wasn't possible, probably, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we first talk about it, when the idea come about. That some people thought that was probably a crazy idea, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. People still think it's crazy.
Yeah. They did think crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think like, you know, for me, like some of the times when I've pushed myself the most as an athlete like that is like doing these really big expeditions or
Yeah.
adventures, or running a really fast time on something I didn't think was doable. But
Yeah.
I think it can really, like, that I found, like I mentioned, like that kind of mindset can apply to so many things, and everyone has their own version of that.
Yeah.
And maybe like Peaches, for you, it's like, it sounds like you want to run 100-miler,
I know.
but you're like not quite sure you can do it
I
or should do
know.
it. And like, you know, maybe like, I don't know, I think or yeah, maybe Kenneth, maybe too, you're gonna run 100 miles. It doesn't have to be 100 miles. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be like objectively absurd either. It could just be kind of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
where are you holding yourself back, and why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
there's not a good reason to hold yourself back, then sometimes I think it's good to just be like, you know what, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just see what happens, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly.
Yeah. That about being balanced, I guess, you know. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that, and thank you just for taking the time to be with us, and thank you, Peaches, for joining me as my
Yeah.
guest
I'm
co-host.
honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Follow Kaytlyn's stuff.
Yes. And thank
Yeah,
you, Kaytlyn. Go ahead.
this was so fun. Thank you so much, both of you guys.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that
I'm
chat.
glad you open up your Strava, because it's cool to like see elite runners, like, you know, do fun things, you know, and it's like, oh, cool, you know. Yeah. So let us know.
To not
Yeah.
do a track workout and instead go skiing.
Yeah. Don't tell your coach. No. Where can I know they can follow you on Strava? Where else can they find you?
Yeah, Strava, and then social media, I'm most active on Instagram.
Okay.
And so it's my name, Kaytlyn_G, but Kaytlyn spelled a little funny, so probably best to see it in the episode notes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Peaches, you close it out. Close it out.
All right. Well, thank you, LRB family, for joining us on the LRB show. Live. I'm gonna
help you out. Live a life.
Live a life beyond the boundary you set on yourself. Until next time.
Until next time, family.
Thank you, Kaytlyn. It was nice meeting you.
It was awesome meeting you guys both. Thank you so much.